Hey, everybody, welcome to the Crit House. I'm Jeff Larson, and we have, once again, our critique group here with us today, and we are going to take a look at the work of Jenae Lien, who is a Los Angeles-based photographer, and she is working on a project that is related to her sister. So we have Ellen Friedlander, Granville Carroll, Jenae, of course, we'll look at today, Nina Welch-Kling, and Nick Gervin as a part of our group from all over the country. Jenae, tell us a little bit about your project and what you're sort of hoping for from us.
No worries. I'm really excited to be here with you also. Thank you. This is a body of work I haven't shown anybody before, and it's kind of a project that, like my sister, I guess I've been taking photos of her since I've, had a camera when we were like in middle school together. But she lives with me here in LA and recently has been going through like some tough stuff mentally. And I'm here for her and here to support her, but also have to recognize that this is her own journey and I can't like overstep myself. And so I've asked if I could take photos of her along her progress and process, and she's all about it. So she's seen a few of these, but really what I would like is, this is like over the past 5 years, and eventually I would like to have a body of work to showcase somewhere, and I would like to know if this is enough or like what else could I focus on in the next few years in her recovery, and like what other photos could I take that would help represent the complexities of a mental health issue where it's not every day that she's going through something traumatic, but there are some days where it is pretty traumatic. And so how do I show that in a photo? So, yeah. So this is some bruising. I don't know how to talk about these photos, but this is just something, it wasn't self-inflicted. She really has like really terrible anemia and bruises very easily, and I just wanted to remember this healing phase in her journey. But yeah, it's just I don't know how to connect with her sometimes when she's going through these hard times. So I have a camera, and the cameras kind of are acts as like a mediator. So I don't know if it like makes sense. Like if this project, like if it's just a personal thing for me, like if I'm just like, oh, I see my sister in this different light, so I see these photos as a certain way, or does it make sense like to an audience as a body of work?
I mean, I've never done a project like this, as personal as this. I mean, but it seems like there's a path for discovery that you're setting yourself out on. So I think you probably have a lot to learn about what this project will be, and that will probably come in time.
Yeah, I think you're definitely on to something. She is your sister, so you've got this in. You probably know her well, I'm assuming. And so that gives you an advantage to narrow it down eventually. But I think that I say eventually because I feel like with a project like this, you need to photograph a lot, so much, and then it's going to come down to a lot of heavy editing. And what I would do if I was approaching a subject like this, especially with mental health, and it's an individual, I would really get into everything about the person. So I would probably do series within a series. So photograph her, but she's just the subject. So what else is about her? What does she have for possessions? What are some of the food she likes to eat? Where does she go? What kind of medications is she taking? Like I would really try to break it into little tiny series within an overall pitch, and then approach it that way. And again, I would probably overshoot as much as possible because this story is unfolding and you're along for the ride with her. And I think that's great that you're supporting her. And I think mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. I've dated people in the past with some mental health issues, and it is very challenging for the people that are also surrounded by that, conditions and things like that. So I think your courage is great, and I think it definitely, the number one thing is just keep shooting.
So can I add to Nick, one of the things that you can also do, because you're part of this, is also turn the camera on yourself. And it doesn't even have to be a self-portrait. It could be just your hands. It could be anything. Don't even think about it. That's the most important lesson I learned a long time ago. Can't remember the photographer who told me, but don't think, shoot, and because you are a vessel, you will make photographs just because you're thinking and you're empathetic and you care, that resonate with your subject more than you can even imagine, versus thinking about what you're shooting. So if you free yourself up and just shoot as Nick said, I agree, shoot as much as possible, overshoot, because this is a very complex, elusive, very hard to contextualize, yet it's all in the in-between.
That makes sense, Ellen.
Yeah. I 100% agree with both Nick and Ellen on that. Both, I was thinking the same ideas, is shoot a lot, and also, turning the camera on yourself, because, as we're talking about it, I can just feel, right, like your level of vulnerability in this project as well as your sister's. And so what is that dichotomy or that relationship between you and her, but then also you and the circumstance beyond just your sister too? And then I would even argue not to necessarily omit the idea of just having a lot of pictures for the sake of having a lot of pictures. Maybe you don't need to edit it so much, maybe you do, but just leaving that possibility open. I'm thinking about a photographer that we teach our students about it in terms of like the abundance of images that enter the world every day. And Jenae Lien, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he took a Polaroid every day for 30 plus years or something like that. Ended up getting cancer, and so it documented his life, and so he has thousands and thousands of pictures, and really the power of that project lies within the abundance of images. And so I think something like this, right, where you don't know the next moment, right, how it's going to affect you or her, and just being there to sort of document and observe, that the power in this might lie in just having an abundance of photographs as well. But there's a lot of tenderness, there's a lot of trust that I can sort of sense from these images, comfortability, companionship, and so I think there's a lot of really deep emotions here that I think is really relatable as well for folks who either are going through mental illness or have folks in their lives who are going through it. So just keep shooting.
Yeah, if you wanted to look, Ellen, is it Debbie Arlock? Is that how you say her? Who you might want to look at in terms of kind of really being emotionally involved in a project, and how she approached it. In some photos are quite documentary, and some of them are very conceptual, and she kind of kept it very open in how, whether it was okay to be sometimes concerned. She included writing in it, so maybe if you want to start including notes or make notes about your sister, or what is she eating, or what is there certain foods. I love that Nick says, make these subdivisions. I would have never thought about it, but I'm not this is not the way or the projects I shoot, but I love the idea that you actually have kind of a checklist, so it's not just free for all, and you say, oh, okay, so what is she eating every day? Or I think that's really helpful when you're in the beginning of a project like that. Besides looking at a lot of other photographers and how they have dealt with mental health, and it's hard because you're emotionally involved.
That is so helpful, Nina. Thank you. I think you're right. This is ultimately a project about mental health, but then also there's a human involved, and the human is so complex, and there's so many variants. So I think as this project evolves, I'm gonna remember to keep shooting and keep finding things that are just not maybe her, because I I was struggling. I have a lot of photos of her, but I think, like Nick was saying, there's so much more that I could capture about her, like opening up the trash bins and seeing all the bottles in there and stuff that, like, you know, that could be very just like add to the storyline. And but I wouldn't have thought of it that way. So thank you.
Jenae, think about how you make those photographs, because you don't have to make them in whatever normal way you think about them. If you open up a bag of all the bottles, it could be blurred, it could be a long exposure, it could be, there's just many different ways that you could approach the work, recording it and do it all the same way, right? Do it tight, do it far, do it blurred, do it just all different manifestations that would give you a lot to work with when you have it all ready to put together.
Yeah, I really agree with that. That's definitely, don't be just remember your camera is just a tool, so feel free to use it how you want, you know.
And I'll finish up by following up on what Ellen said earlier. You are part of this story. I mean, I don't know that there's a way of separating out yourself as the photographer and the sister from your sister. Somehow, recognizing that you're in this story as a photographer. There's no way of being entirely objective, and somehow that needs to be recognized and documented in some way. So. Thank you. This looks like it's going to become something powerful. Thank you for showing your work. Jenae Lien is a Los Angeles-based photographer. Thanks to Ellen Friedlander, Granville, Carroll, Nina Welch-Kling, and Nick Gervin for all joining us here on the Crit House Critique Group. We will be back more next week with Nina Welch-Kling. Thanks for watching the Crit House.